Hello, everyone, and welcome to this CartoVista webinar of the Applied Remote Sensing series. So today's topic focuses on importing RGB geotiffs into CartoVista. So as we know, this type of image is more and more used in the world of geomatics. It could be for projects related to the environment, urban planning, mining, or agriculture, and so on. So that's why CartoVista works very hard to offer you this feature, which will be ready in the next few weeks. Today, the dynamic of the webinar will be a little bit different because we will have the chance to hear from Thomas Jagler from Arctus, who will talk about his use of CartoVista. But before we start, I'm going to give the floor to my colleague, Chloé Tomasi, so she can quickly introduce herself. Good afternoon, Chloé. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Jonathan. I'm good. And you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. So yeah, welcome everyone to this webinar. My name is Chloé Tomasi. I'm a GIS specialist at CartoVista, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. So my job as CartoVista is really to help clients and users to use CartoVista at best. And I worked with very different users on a variety of different projects. And it's a question that I got really often is how to import RGB Geotiff easily on CartoVista. And that's why I'm really excited today to show you this new feature that has been developed in the recent weeks. And yeah, I hope you will enjoy it.
Okay, thank you very much, Chloé. So we're going to have a look of the agenda to start. So like a short introduction of around 2 minutes. Then we are going to have the two presentations around 15 minutes. So Thomas is going to speak. Thomas from Arctus is going to speak about his use of CartoVista. And then Chloé is going to show us how to use RGB Geotiff layers into CartoVista with a couple of examples. Then we're going to switch into the feature poll and the trail information, which are like around 2 minutes. And then we're going to end with the Q&A section. So if you have any question now, you can just start to type whatever question you have. You have a Q&A button in Zoom. It can be related to us, to CartoVista, or like you can ask any question to Thomas as well. So just to start, well, hello, Thomas. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. How are you today?
Hello, Jonathan. I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you.
Cool. So let me introduce you real quick. So you're a remote sensing and GIS specialist at Arctus. So Arctus is a remote sensing research company located in Rimouski, Quebec, which works in collaboration with universities and government agencies. So Arctus is specialized into the analysis of aquatic environments and works in particular of the impact of climate change. So this is the objective of the CCIER, so the Climate Change Impact on Ecosystem Resilient project, for which Arctus has chosen to work with CartoVista. So my first question, Thomas, is can you tell us a bit more about this project, like its purpose and how it came about?
So Arctus CCIER project has been funded by the Canadian Space Agency. Our field of work is mostly the aquatic remote sensing, the aquatic monitoring using remote sensing data from satellite. We at Arctus want to improve and show the feasibility of using Earth observation data for monitoring the environment and the impact of the climate change.
Cool. So yeah, thank you very much. My second question is going to be like, what type of data do you use and for what purposes exactly?
So mostly we are using visible data. So it's we are using satellite measurement to develop some product that will help stakeholder and community to monitor the coastal environment and then change that is currently visible for their side. We are using Earth observation data because for now we can have like several years of monitoring, so we can have time and spatial information with this kind of data.
Okay, great. So you have, like, as we know, you have a CartoVista portal that you are working on. So what maps have you been able to create? Can you just introduce some of them to us?
So one objective of the project is to distribute the product that we are producing, that we are working on, to the community and the stakeholders. So we found that CartoVista is a great tool to show off our results. And I can show you some of our latest results. So this is the portal that CartoVista has put in place for us. And I'm working with Geotiff data, but also some shapefile and some Geotiff and shapefile mostly. So the present webinar has been put in place for the RGB measurement, but we also have data stored in one channel, like this kind. The one that you can see on the screen is the estimation of the suspended sediment. What is interesting for us is the time series tools that we can show the change using different Geotiff, and we can see the variability in one click. So it's really interesting. In the same time, there is some kind of tool that is really interesting for us and for the partner, like the tool for the profile measurement, for example. So it's really interesting to see the spatial variability also. So these are the maps for the suspended sediment. We also have some information for the shoreline variability that has been derived by using satellite data. So here, these are lines available on some shapefile. So I can put it on my map and see like this a time variability of the shoreline. So I can see if there is some retreat, or I can gather some information using CartoVista tools.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for your time, Thomas, and like your very interesting examples. We really appreciate it. And if you guys have any question for Thomas, you can, as I mentioned, you can ask them during our Q&A section at the end of the webinar. So now Chloe will show us how to use RGB Geotiffs into CartoVista. So yeah, Chloe, it's your time.
Thanks. Thank you very much also, Thomas, for your presentation. It was really interesting. So I'll share my screen to show you examples of RGB uses in CartoVista and how we can actually import them in the CartoVista portal. So I'll be focusing on two examples. One with the aerial imagery actually from Arctus. So Thomas will be able to tell us a bit more about the specific image that we'll be looking at. And then my second example will be in the example of the city of Lyon in France, and we'll show how we can use historical imagery for analysis in CartoVista. So I'll just go to the first example just now. Great. So this is the aerial imagery that we had from Arctus. So maybe, Thomas, you can explain us a little bit more as to what we can see here. You talked about sediment in your presentation. I guess this is something that we can see here and that you use to create the geotiffs that you just talked about.
Yeah, that's exactly what you can see here is the river in the north shore of the Saint Laurent estuary. This image has been taken in September 2019, and a few days before there was a really high amount of precipitation. So this is a good example of erosion in the river plume in the Saint Lawrence.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Okay, great. So this kind of image with this so useful information has been added to CartoVista as a really simple layer. You can see it here in the layer control. You can manage it as any other layer. So you can manage its opacity, for instance. So that means that if you have any other information, vector or Geotiff data to add and to compare with this aerial imagery, then you can use the opacity, for instance, to manage to see the several data at the same time. So how did I create this map and how do we import this data into the CartoVista portal? Well, it's really easy. What you have to do is go over to the data section of the portal. As you know, in CartoVista, data can be organized into subfolder in the portal. So you just have to go to the portal, the folder you're interested in. So let's go into the grid layer folder. And now I have the add data button. I just need to click on it, and now as you can see, you can import geotiffs, and so you can import single band geotiff as Thomas has shown us in his map, and now you can also import multi-band geotiff to import them as RGB geotiff. So that's just what I'll do now. Just have to take my geotiff in my folder and drag and drop it here in this area. So now I can see the evolution of the upload of my file into the portal. And once it's done, I can choose either to reproject it or keep the local projection of the coordinate system of my file. So I'll just reproject it for now. I can also change the name. So I can say it's Arctus aerial imagery, for instance. And as you can see here, it says bands are RGB. So CartoVista, the system detected that there are several bands in this file and that they can be interpreted as red, green, blue. So that's what's going to happen once this is checked. So I just have to click finish, and then I get a little notification on the process of my import. It has started and now it is completed. And so this Arctus imagery, this is the one that oops, sorry, misclicked. This is the one that I've just added. And so it's available as in my list of data, and as any other data, I can manage permissions. So for instance, I can have modification permission for myself, and I can give Jonathan access permissions, for instance. So that way you can share with your colleagues or any other stakeholders, for instance, as Thomas talked about. So it's really interesting. And also in the information section, as you can see, the grid layer type has been set to RGB. So yeah. What's also interesting to note is that, as you can see here, there's this one geotiff information. So that means that in this record, there's only one geotiff that I've just imported, but it's possible to have multiple geotiffs. So for instance, if we look at this one, and we'll go over the second example of the map of Lyon I've talked about in the beginning of this presentation. So here there are two geotiffs, and that means that I've created a time series for this imagery. So I can click on the two geotiff button here, and I get inside the time series, and I can see that I have two records in my time series. So two separate geotiffs that have been added and linked together at the time series. And so I have a 1953 imagery and a 2014 imagery. And that way in my map, I can compare between 1953 and 2040 imagery. So I'll just go over to my map now and show you what it looks like in the map. So this is the map that I've been talking about. So here is the actual imagery of 2014. So we are in the southern part of Lyon, which is a part that has evolved a lot in the last decades. And if I go, for instance, in 1953, so this little floating windows allows you to change from one time to another. So now I've moved to 1953, and I can see that the city looks quite different, and it used to be quite industrial at that time. So what would be interesting maybe is just to look at specific points. So I've added a point here of all the city heritage and also cultural equipments of the city. So I'll just look at a specific example. I'll look for the Altony Garnier, which is this building right here. So as you can see, it was there in 1953, and it was actually at that time the slaughterhouse, and there's a lot of other industrial buildings and storage building around it. And now if I go up to 2014, you can see that this building is still here. but the surroundings have changed a bit, obviously. And it's no longer a slaughterhouse, now it's a concert hall. So it's a good example of how the industrial heritage of the city has been used and changed and evolved as the city evolved itself. So I can go to another example, show you maybe a different case. So go over to the Quartier de la Confluence, which is right there. So right now it's quite residential, and also it's an area where we have lots of shops. This is a mall that has been created. There's a marina, for instance, here. And if I go to 1953, for instance, you'll see that it is very different. I have lots of industrial buildings and railways, a huge railway network. So for instance, if I really want to compare more closely, and I can add annotations in here. So for instance, if I want to look at the marina here, I can just draw it like this. And now if I go back to 1953, I will be able to compare and see what was there in 1953. And as you can see, the railway used to go actually across this marina that has been constructed. So that means that there has been really some important and structural changes here in this part of the city. So yeah, I just wanted to show you around these tools and also give you a hint of the kind of analysis that we can do using our RGB imagery and historical records. So that concludes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed, and Jonathan, I give it's up to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Chloe. Thanks a lot for these interesting examples that show that working with RGB Geotiff layers with CartoVista is like very user-friendly, actually. So now we're going to start our poll section. So we would like to know a bit more about you. Like, it's always useful to imagine, like for us to imagine future improvements of the software. So we'll let you answer these two questions for a few minutes, and then we are going to have a closer look with Chloe about it. Okay, so thank you very much for your answers. We have 100% of participation, which is pretty good. So satellite images for the first question, which is like, what type of RGB are you using or planning to use? So satellite images is an 85%, which is pretty big. Like we can see with Thomas' presentation that it's something very, very useful. Then we have drone imagery with 38%. A lot of things that you can do with that, especially like in the agriculture field, for example, irrigation of this kind of information. More related to Chloe's presentation about the city of Lyon, we have historical aerial images, it's 31%. And then we have the false color images with like around 54%. What about the second question, Chloe?
Yeah, just to comment on the first section and the false color imagery, it's true that we only talked about RGB color, but it could also be applied to any bands not necessarily in the visible spectrum. So that's also very interesting and very useful also to study vegetation evolution, for instance. So yeah, it's really interesting. And so yeah, sorry, the second question. So we have a lot of people from geoscience and environment, which makes sense. It's a really a major field to use imagery and aerial imagery, and then also urbanism and agriculture, but also quite interested in, as we've seen with the example in urbanism, it could also lead to interesting analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah.
Right, thank you very much. So now we're going to start with our trial explanation. So just to make sure, understand how we can try CartoVista. So you can just go to our website, cartovista.com, and it's this orange button here, try CartoVista. You're going to arrive into two interactive map portals. You have the portal that we call Experience. So we have a big amount of maps that we've been designing in the past, business analysis maps, municipal info sharing, for example. And we have the Layers portal, which is more focused in fun maps or creative contents usually. So then we just have to fill all of this information with your first name, last name, email, phone number, etc. Once you've done that, you just click this blue button, request your trial today. Your portal is going to be created directly, and then you will be able to add your data into your portal. Once you will have set your password, and you will be able to download our desktop application to start building your maps. So same as we were saying before, we can really help you with that. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email. This is my email address, gleblanc@cartovista.com. Chloe's email here. So it would be a great pleasure for us to help you in this project.
Absolutely.
So now let's start with this Q&A section. So we have this button in Zoom called Q&A. You can ask any question. Thomas is still here if you have any question. So the first one that is coming is there a limit to how many images I can load?
So there's not really a limit as to how many images you can load. It's just a question of storage, but we know that when you come to using aerial imagery and any kind of geotiffs, really, it can use up quite a lot of space. So we are quite flexible actually in that manner as to offer you the space you need in terms of geotiffs. And also maybe an interesting thing that we haven't talked about is that if you have many geotiffs, we also have a server REST API that will allow you to upload your geotiffs automatically on the server, which might be a bit more easier depending on the use case. As to what I've shown is to add it manually with the add data button. That works fine if you have a few geotiffs, but if you have lots of them, then the REST API can be very, very useful, and it's really easy to use. So I've basically answered the two questions at the same time, but they were related. So.
Yeah, gave me time to have a sip of water. So first question, do you work on a mobile phone or cell phone? Yeah, we do. We use HTML5 to programming the software, so we can CartoVista is working in any kind of devices. Could be iPad or tablets. It could be smartphones and computers, of course. So it means that you can just have CartoVista with you driving, not at the same time, but you can stop and work with CartoVista, and you don't have to have your big computers, etc., etc. So it's pretty user friendly. And then we have another. It's not a question. It's for Thomas. Very impressive work by Arctus. Nice to see other remote sensing companies using the tools provided by CartoVista. So it's a good message for you, Thomas.
That's great, but it's true. It was impressive. It was really nice presentation.
And then we have something for you. I'm kind of the master of ceremony now, so it's something for you, Chloe. What is the source of your RGB images of Lyon, please? Thanks.
Yeah, this was provided by the IGN, which is IGN, which is a main source of geographic data in France.
It's open source.
They now provide their imagery freely. And actually, I did the 2014 data, was not the last one that they have. They also have a 2018, which is even more precise. So yeah, if we're interested in aerial imagery in France, this is a major source of information, and they have really impressive data.
Yeah, especially because it's open source and it's a governmental
Yeah, it's a governmental
organization,
agency.
so it's very good. And then we have one last question. It's a big one. So when working with a multi-band file, like a TIFF with 5 bands, do you get us to specify the mapping between the file and the RGB display, or is the first band in the file always going to be used for red, second for green, and the third one for blue?
So yeah, it's going to be the first one is red, the second one is green, and the third is blue. So you have to have the band in the correct order so that you'll be interpreted correctly, properly by the software. So yeah, and also reminds me of something is that we also have some even newer feature about the RGB that are coming up that will allow you to manage RGB geotiffs that are not from 0 to 50 to 55. So if you have values that are outside that range, then you can rescale your values automatically, and you can also choose to ignore the more extreme values by removing like the first 2% and the last 2% of the values of your dataset. So that also will be coming up in the next versions of CartoVista.
Cool, thank you, Chloe. Another question from Bajat. So Thomas, nice presentation. So that's for you, Thomas. Does CartoVista accept shapefile format, or do you need to convert them to RGB? So the answer is yes, CartoVista accepts shapefile formats, like any kind of vector formats with a map info tab. We can combine them into the same final product. Yeah,
today we focused on RGB and Geotiffs, but we absolutely support vector data.
Yeah, and we can combine them in the same map too.
Absolutely.
And another question, that this looks awesome. Does the RGB Geotiff layer take much server space and slow to load?
So it really depends on the size of your data. So if it has several bands, then since it has several bands, it takes up a bit more space than a single band Geotiffs. And as I've just seen, like the image that I've shown from Arctus, it took only a few seconds to load, so that was really fast, but it was not a big image. So if you have a bigger image, it would take a bit more time, but yeah, it really depends on the size of your image.
Yeah, it's difficult to answer. It's dependent on what you're planning to do. No more question. One last call. No? Well, I think it's time to say thank you to Thomas. Thank you very much for coming for the session in French, the session in English right now. It's very impressive to see all of the work you've been doing in Arctus. So thank you very much, and thank you, Chloe, again, and say goodbye to everyone and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.